The Money Show.
Business Books.
Well, it's time for our Business Books feature now. Mann, regular book reviewer and MD at Gateways Business Consultants, joins us for this particular review of the book, The Death of Demographics, Value Graphic Marketing for a Values-Driven World. Now, marketers have always believed demographics and psychographics held the key to influencing consumer behavior. But if only we knew enough about someone, their age, their gender, their purchase history, favorite brands. The world has come to know that's not enough. Demographics don't cut it when it comes to describing the modern consumer. This book really telling us to do away with it, but I'll let Ian do the review himself. Ian, welcome again to The Money Show.
Thanks. We've always thought that if we could say, well, I need to target people, so I'm going to try and target people who are 25 years old, and they're females, they earn a certain amount of money, and if I can find all of those people, I'd be able to sell them exactly what I want to sell them. The problem is this, that if I know something about somebody of that age, the question is, how much do I really know about them? And what this book proves is that all human beings are pretty much the same about 11% of the time. If you can throw in demographics, you might get up to 14% of the time, which doesn't mean that you've added terribly much value. What they've discovered is if you are simply talking about demographics, you're finding that the improvement is minimal. And why you need this is because we need to work out, if I'm trying to sell you something, how can I change what you're doing now to make you make a buying decision? What the author does, is a guy called Allison, what he's discovered from his own experience is that, from his experience as a marketer, is that there's a greater correlation between people with similar values, irrespective of the age that they are, irrespective of their financial income. In fact, he gives examples of, we've often thought that all billionaires are the same. But the example he gives is, if you take a man like Anu, owns a huge number of exotic brands, but very high-end brands, Louis Vuitton, all the others. And you compare him to another billionaire who's a world's largest pig farmer. What do those two men have in common just because they're pretty much the same age and they've got the same income? If you could work out what their values are, and he's done studies around the world, he's done 750,000 surveys on this across all countries, and what he's discovered is very clear, is that you can get something like 84% similarity by knowing what the values are, irrespective of age, irrespective of income, irrespective of any other characteristics, male and females, quite definitely. It's all got to do with the values that people hold, because it's the values that make them make the buying decision, not the age, not the income.
So what he's basically saying is that you can't treat people like, a herd of cattle, but you can, get similarities by really speaking to what their values are about and what they find most important.
You see, I think that it's a fact that we don't buy because anything other than we value this. And because we value this, I'll make buying decisions like that. So whether I'm of a particular age, it doesn't really matter much. But really, when you look at the numbers that he comes up with, they're quite staggering. There's some 81% similar across them, 86% similar. And he's come up with something else which is quite fascinating. He's looked at values across continents. We've divided the world up in 9, 10 different regions. And you find that the values in those regions, the dominant values, there'll be a set of dominant values, and that all regions don't have the same values. I just give you one example. In Africa, there's a sense of communalism, which you don't find as prominently in any other continent.
Yeah.
And in their communalism, people have a different attitude. So if you were selling to Americans, you might say to them, we are Avis. We're number 2, so we try harder. When I say to you that we try harder, it means that the other guys don't try hard. And he said that if you were trying to sell generally in Africa, you probably would not do well by saying, I'm dismissing these other people because they're not as good as us. That the communalism doesn't allow people to think like that. And you're probably better off saying some people like this and other people like that. And when you're going to market to them, you need to be very careful as to whether you're violating anything that's common in that area. For example, Africans have a very, very high level of religious sensibility. It's not necessarily that they're parts of a church or any other community, but it's a sense of religion. And he says that you don't find that in the top 5 in any of the areas of the world. You will, for example, in America find people belong. They really want to belong a lot. So you've got these different characteristics, and there are 54 values which coalesce into 15 different categories. And it seems to be a very nice way to start looking at people and trying to get the last mile of marketing is to get somebody to buy something. And using value graphics as opposed to demographics he's found to be more significant. I think it may be worthwhile just give you a quick idea of how he got to this idea.
Yeah.
He said he was marketing upmarket condominiums. That's what his company did for a living. Market upmarket condominiums. So they would draw up a psychographic and demographic of the person who's likely to come there. Being high end, they were wealthy, they were urban, they were of a particular seniors. And he said he would go to the opening of these events. And almost every single time, they called them like Joe and Sally type people. And he said, you never found the Joe and Sallys. Most of the people were completely different who chose to live in that area for all sorts of different reasons. But they liked what it was offering. And when you say, well, this area is close to, I value the community. I value the weather. I value whatever it is. But people cluster more along across the lines, but within a value demographic.
Does it touch?
Graphic. And I think that sorry? I think that
and
that's the value of the book.
I was going to say, does he touch on the amount of work you need to do to, draw out what those values are as compared to demographics that have just bunched up a group and age groups and, the ages of people? Obviously that would be simpler to collate, but value graphics is really a brand talking to a customer directly.
You're quite right. And in the book, he gives examples of this. From the book alone, you wouldn't be able to do it. It's quite a sophisticated process, but he shows you how you can do that in your company, at least beginning the process in your company, so that you know that the people who join my company seem to be people who have got a particular set of values, which gives us almost like the culture of the company. You'd have to, it's much, as you say, it's much easier to find out how old the person is, and much more difficult to see whether they're all people who value hard work, people who value as a thing in itself, people who value health, people who value community, whatever it is. So there is a method that he does show you in the book of how to identify these things. But when I've tried to do it, try to apply that, it really requires a lot more skill than you'll get from just reading the book.
And I guess that's why he gets paid the big bucks. But also, it's really changed the way we see consumers as just a group of people who all believe in the same thing. It's really zeroing in on the consumer that you want to spend on your brand, and also looking to get some value from them, and also making them stick with your brand. So kind of creating a relationship between the two. Ian Mann, a regular book reviewer and MD at Gateway's Business Consultants, telling us about the death of demographics, talking about value graphic marketing for a values-driven world. That was by David Allison. That book you can still pick up as a business book feature today, really talking about how consumers are not just tribes, but also individuals. Thank you so much for that review.